Good evening and welcome to tonight's Committee of the Whole. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Tauschek.
Here.
Herman.
Here.
Matzdorf. Here. Gilson.
Here.
Hildebrand.
Here.
Penkwitz.
Here.
Shilsky. Nelson.
Here.
Let the record show we have a quorum. Next is the approval of the minutes from July 26, 2023. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second motion.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Mill Pond Study Report, and I'll ask our city administrator, Tim Blakesley, to introduce it, make a comment, and introduce our guest this evening. Tim.
Sounds good. So in 2015, the city of Plymouth did receive a notice from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources that required the spillway of the Mullet River Dam to be brought into compliance with NR 333.06 within 10 years. So that would be 2025. So as part of the 2023 budget, the city did include funding to hire an engineering firm to provide assistance to the city and providing options for removal or replacement of the dam structure. So the city issued a request for qualifications in early 2023 and received two submissions to that. In March 23, council did select Ayers Associates to complete that study. So Ayers has experience in both dam removal and dam upgrade and replacement options. In addition, the city of Plymouth was allocated $1 million in the 24-25 state budget for the project. I'm going to introduce Adam Schneider with Ayers. He's going to give a brief presentation of the options. This is a good time to ask questions, get any sort of outstanding items you would like clarified. Good time to ask questions for staff. We may not have the answers tonight, but we can come back to you with answers in the future. The presentation tonight is again intended to just introduce the topic and the four alternatives and allow Adam to answer questions. The intention tonight is not making a decision on the dam project. We don't want to obviously rush into that decision. We want to make sure we have all the facts and information beforehand. So at an upcoming meeting, likely either November 14th or November 28th, we'll sort of present pathways forward that council can choose on how to come to that decision regarding the Mill Pond Dam. So without further ado, I'll introduce Adam and he can give a presentation on the study.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Let me interrupt 1 second, Adam, and just comment for our viewing audience and those in our audience in person. Tonight is not a public hearing, it's information. So we're trying to get information to the council, and if anybody in the audience or at home have questions, please get in touch with the clerk's office and Tim so that we have as much input as possible as this process goes forward.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Adam, floor is yours.
Can you speak in there now?
Good try.
Yeah, we got a dimmer.
Learned something new today.
Oh, yeah.
Been here a year, didn't know that existed.
She has your touch.
All right, well, thanks for having me, everyone. My name's Adam Schneider. I'm an engineer with Ayers Associates. I'm located up in the Green Bay area. But I grew up kind of down in this area and have worked on a lot of projects nearby. Currently, we're the engineer for the Sheboygan Marsh Dam replacement project going on just up the road. So I've been coming down to the area quite a bit lately. And I'm excited to have been able to look into this issue for the city. So just kind of to start out with going over the problem with the existing dam, it's classified by the Wisconsin DNR as a low hazard dam, and this was determined in 2015 when the dam failure analysis was done for the Mullet River Dam. So low hazard dams by Wisconsin statute need to be able to pass the 100-year flood without overtopping. So the 100-year flood is a flood that's large enough that on average it's only going to be exceeded in magnitude once every 100 years. So you can get floods of that magnitude occurring more frequently. It's not like once you have that 100-year flood, you're not going to get it for another 100 years, but on average, that's a flood that's going to be exceeded in magnitude once every 100 years. So the existing dam has a capacity of about 500 cubic feet per second. That means it can pass 500 cubic feet per second through its existing spillways before it starts bypassing around the dam, overtopping. And you can see the existing dam has two spillways. On the picture left side, next to that building, it's just a fixed crest overflow. And then on the right, it's kind of a strange and unique timber structure with a concrete sill, but based on my understanding, those timbers that the water is flowing over are never removed. So that's the existing dam. Like I said, the capacity is only 500 cubic feet per second, but the 100-year peak flow rate is 3,200 cubic feet per second. And that's right from the flood insurance study for the area at 3,200 CFS. So obviously that the existing dam doesn't come anywhere close to being able to pass that storm. So that's where that directive from the DNR came from. And that 100-year flood overtops the existing dam by about 2 feet. So that's a significant amount of water that will be going through the park. And I mean, really around both sides of the dam, that would be a significant issue. So the DNR issued their directive in 2015 to increase the spillway capacity by 2025 so that it can pass that 100-year flood. As an alternative to modifying the dam and increasing the spillway capacity, another option is the dam can be abandoned and removed. Either of those would meet the DNR's requirements. So we looked into 3 dam improvement options. When I say dam improvement, that just means modifying it so it has the spillway capacity needed to pass that 100-year flood event. And then we looked at 1 dam removal option. So I'll kind of go through those right now. So option 1 was a crest gate. This is a hydraulic, and I'll go through each of these in more detail. But the crest gate is a large metal leaf basically that pivots about its base and can raise and lower and control the elevation at which water goes over it. That new gate, it would be 34 feet long and 9.5 feet high. And then adjacent to that would be a 27-foot long fixed crest spillway like you currently have adjacent to that building. Option 2, you swap out that big crest gate and you put in 2 vertically rising slide gates. Those would each be 10 feet wide by 9.5 feet wide. And then a slightly longer overflow spillway right next to that. Option 3 is really similar, that those are also vertically rising gates, but each of the 2 gates is split into 2 panels. That'll be more clear when I go through that option in more detail. That again, just like the slide gate option, has a 40-foot long fixed crest spillway adjacent to it. And then option 4 is dam removal and stream stabilization. So here is a 3D look at what that crest gate kind of looks like. In the upper left, that's the fixed crest spillway that I was talking about. That would be, I believe that was 27 feet long. Yep. So the building, the existing building that's there would still be just adjacent to that fixed crest spillway. And then to the right of that is that large crest gate, and you can see, kind of imagine how that crest pivots about its base on a hinge and can lower to let more water through the dam. That fixed crest spillway we set to the elevation of your current fixed crest spillway, and the idea was we didn't really want to be sending any more water onto that side of the dam because of that building that's there. We're really tight about what you can do there, so we didn't want to be sending really any more water adjacent to that building. So the vast majority of flow coming through the dam is going to be coming on river left through that crest gate adjacent to the city's park. This is what it looks like kind of plopped in. It's our engineer's rendition, not an architect's rendition of that building, but it's white and 2 stories. And then we have that fixed crest spillway next to it, and then the crest gate just to the right of that. And those 2 spillways fit right within the footprint of your existing dam, basically. There wouldn't be a significant takeaway from your current park space. These are some pictures to give you an idea of what these things look like in real life. That one on the left is the brand new crest gate that was just installed a month or so ago up at Sheboygan Marsh. They're putting that thing into place. That gate is actually roughly the size of what you would need in your dam. It's hard to believe, but that gate is 10 feet high and at about 25 feet wide. Your gate with that option would be 9.5 feet high, but 34 feet long. So your gate would be a little longer than that. So you can see the hinge at the bottom, and it's not installed yet, but there's a big hydraulic arm that can lift and lower that gate. Those gates are hydraulically controlled from kind of a enclosure that would be adjacent to the dam, so you don't have to actually get out on the dam even to operate it. That other picture on the right is in Grafton. That's kind of a similar configuration to what you have here, where you can see Grafton has that fixed crest overflow spillway that water is currently flowing over, and then their crest gate is about 8 feet high, I think, and that was maybe about 20 feet wide. So again, order of magnitude kind of on the same range of what you would be looking at. These are really nice gates. They're really intuitive to operate. Like, you need to lower the pond level an inch. Start by lowering that crest gate an inch. I mean, it's just simple to wrap your head around. In an emergency, if power is lost and you need to get that gate open, which is a plausible scenario, a big storm comes through, power's out. If you lose power to the gate, all you have to do is disconnect the hydraulics and the water pressure will just push it down. So in an emergency, these are really, really good gates. They're also good at passing debris over the top. On the downside, they are the most expensive option, which you'd see in kind of our cost estimates at the end. And since water is going over the top, you don't have that bottom draw that can help to flush sediment out of the upstream pond. So that's kind of a drawback to having a top releasing gate like that. Thought I'd just go over some of the maintenance requirements. That picture on the left is the Sheboygan Marsh crest gate, fully lowered with water flowing over it. So that was taken shortly after that installation one that I showed you previously. But from a maintenance perspective, on a yearly, there's some routine maintenance yearly. The gate should be exercised yearly, not necessarily through its full range of motion, but you want to keep that thing moving. I would think every spring when there's snow melt, I would think just conditions in general will give you opportunities of its own to exercise the gate. But they need to be lubricated and kind of just looked over on a yearly basis. There's painted steel, so every now and then painting is required. It seems to be kind of a 15 to 20 year thing, but all of these timelines I have on here are really variable. So it's hard to guess, but I just kind of threw out what we normally see. These have side seals that keep water from going between the gate and the concrete abutments. Those are another thing that need to be replaced every 15 to 20 years. And changing the hydraulic fluid, that's something some dam owners never do. And some, if you follow the gate manufacturer's guidelines, I think they usually say about every 5 to 10 years to swap out the hydraulic fluid. That's about it from a maintenance perspective. These gates and all the gates that I'm going to present, you usually expect to see at least a good 50-year lifespan for them. And it can definitely be much more than that, but I think everyone in this room won't have to deal with it again. The gates should outlive all of us. All right, option 2. Here we have that fixed crest spillway again, but it's going to be a little longer. It goes from 27 feet to 40 feet. And then we're going to get rid of the crest gate and swap in 2 vertically rising slide gates. And this is, again, is the engineer's rendition. 2 slide gates are on the right. These are just big steel panels that lift straight up out of the water, so water comes underneath the gate as opposed to over it. Here's some real life pictures. That one on the left is that's in Ogdensburg, kind of up by Wisconsin Rapids, Stevens Point, that general area. That one on the right is up in Moose Lake, way up north. But you can see big giant panels, a big shaft connected to the panels, and then there's a motor, the gearbox, that lifts the panels out of the water and water comes underneath. It's a pretty simple setup. This will be your cheapest option. They don't have much for maintenance requirements. The big thing is they're stainless steel, so there's nothing really to paint. They do require yearly greasing, things like that, but there's not much for operations and maintenance. And with that bottom draw, you may get some beneficial incidental, like flushing of sediment from the pond. So those are kind of the pros of this type of setup. Drawbacks, they're not as intuitive to operate, unlike the crest gate where you lower the top of the gate an inch, you can kind of expect the pond is going to go down an inch. With these, there's a little more trial and error figuring out how the pond will respond to how high you have each of the gates open. But that can be figured out with experience. It's not like an insurmountable challenge, but it's not as immediately intuitive to operate. And since water flows below these, they're more likely to catch debris and get debris stuck on the upstream side of the dam that they don't have to deal with. Maintenance is pretty basic. These have side seals just like the crest gates, where there's just a seal between the big stainless steel panel and the concrete abutments. Those seals, usually made out of neoprene, every now and then they just start to leak and have to be replaced. That's a 15 to 20 year item usually. The gearboxes for the motors, the actuators that lift the gates, those sometimes need maintenance every 15 to 20 years usually. The thing that usually needs to be done is the gearbox just needs to be rebuilt. But that again, sometimes you see dams where they never have to do anything with them. So it's really hard to say, but just kind of giving you some general ideas. And then just yearly maintenance is really exercising it, keeping it greased. These, not too much going on here to take care of. This is in Medford. This is a more similar setup as to what you would have, where you have that fixed crest spillway there, and then there are actually 2 similarly sized slide gates right next to it. So this is kind of in real life what you would have to look at here in Plymouth. So I thought it was a good picture to show for this. A similar setup. This is a third option. These are the stainless steel split leaf gates. They operate very similarly to the previous one I just showed you, but each of the gates has 2 panels, and you can see that in the lower right drawing below the photo. There are 2 gates. Each of them are the same size as the slide gates were, 10 feet high and or 9.5 feet high and 10 feet wide, something like that. But the gates, each of them are broken into 2 steel panels. And I'll show you some pictures. This is one up in Bloomer. The split leaf gates are circled on the right. And you can see there are 2 panels. Each panel, usually, it doesn't have to be this way, but each panel usually has its own actuator so they can lift and raise separately. So that top panel can be lowered to let water over the top. Or alternatively, both panels can be simultaneously lifted completely out of the water to let water flow underneath. So these are like the slide gate in a flood because you can get both panels out of the water. But during more normal periods where you want to maybe fine tune your flows through the dam and control your water level, you can just lower that top panel to get more water going over the top. So this photo is good. I think this is Fox Lake. But you can see there are two gate bays, just like you would have, but the one on the right, that upper panel is raised to its closed position basically, so you don't have water going over the top. That one on the left, you can tell that upper panel is lowered a couple inches, water is flowing over the top. So these gates are really nice because they give you that they're cheaper than the crest gate, but they give you that top flow capability that can make just normal day-to-day water control really nice. Then during a flood or during spring snowmelt, when you need to get more water through the dam, you can envision both of those panels just being completely lifted out of the water, and water can flow right through those concrete gate bays. So, going through the pros and cons, on the positive side, these are nice because you can get weir flow over the top or sluice flow below through the bottom. So they afford you more flexibility. They're more intuitive to operate as a result of that because you can do fine tuning of your water levels in the lake by lowering that top panel. When it comes to the point where you can't release enough by lowering the top panels, like you have that top panel down all the way, you need to get more water through the dam, then it'd be time to lift both of them out of the water, let water go underneath. And because these have flow over the top, they are generally better at passing debris than just the slide gates are, where the flow has to go through the bottom. They're more expensive than the slide gates, which you'll see. And they have more moving parts. With more moving parts, there's always just more opportunity for things to go wrong. So that's kind of a drawback. Maintenance is going to really be the same as the slide gates, where those side seals might need replacement every 15 to 20 years. The gearbox might need work every 15 to 20 years. Just routine greasing. Beyond that, these gates, there's really not much operations and maintenance that you need to worry about if they're performing like they're supposed to be. All right, so those were the 3 dam improvement modifications. The third one, or the fourth alternative we looked at, was removing the dam and stabilizing the stream. Now this is an option that has a lot of different possibilities that are plausible should the dam actually be removed. Talking it over with Tim and Kathy, for this study, we decided to, and this will make more sense as I go further along, but for this study, we decided to remove the dam and keep things in the upstream impoundment more natural, and the reason for that will become more clear as I get through this. But certainly from a technical standpoint, there's nothing to keep you from removing the dam and, for example, putting recreational features in the lake bed. From a technical standpoint, that's not difficult to do, but from a more logistical standpoint, that's more challenging, and I'll get into that. We do know, based on the drawdowns you've had in the past though, that we expect to see the main channel of the river come to the left side of Picnic Island and head toward the dam. But there's a way that I think you could also, if you were to remove this dam, you could grade it such that you get water bifurcating and going around both sides of the island. I think that could be plausibly accomplished. But beyond that, what we considered really were removing the structure and doing things to stabilize the stream bed. We didn't consider any recreational enhancements, park space, or anything like that. And I'll get into that in a minute. So dam removal, the benefits of dam removal, there certainly are from an ecological and water quality standpoint. There's no doubt that letting the water flow helps things in that regard. These low head dams are just generally not known for being very, they don't have much in the way of ecological benefit compared to a fresh running stream. So that's definitely a pro. It's also the lowest cost alternative. Removing the dam and stabilizing the stream can almost certainly be done cheaper than improving the dam. There is a possibility for some recreational enhancements. We didn't get into that because MSA did a corridor study back in 2015 where they really laid out detailed recreational enhancements and improvements in the lake bed should the dam be removed. There was no need to reinvent that wheel. All that stuff they have in there is possible, and it's something you definitely could do in the lake bed. But the downside to that is that, I'm just cut right to it, the land ownership issues will make it very difficult to develop that lake bed into anything other than just natural space. I had a quote in here from an attorney who was, what was she hired at the city?
Yeah.
She's your city attorney, okay. So she looked into the situation because when they did the corridor study in 2015, when MSA did that, they looked into what some of the issues would be, and what the attorney said here, and I'll just read it. In summary, if the city decides to remove the dam, the newly exposed land will revert to the adjoining properties. There will be extensive issues raised as to the property boundaries. If the city wishes to construct the park areas identified on Exhibit A, that's Exhibit A from MSA's study, there would be significant land acquisition issues. And the general feeling I got reading through her memo was that, one, you would need to do like an extensive title search on all the adjacent properties to figure out what properties, lot lines which parcels would extend all the way to the new ordinary high water mark, and which ones might not. But it doesn't matter. The general consensus is that it would be a really complicated map. It's not like the city would just own that land. There'd be, if you wanted to develop it, there'd be significant land acquisition issues to deal with. That's the biggest downside and the thing that makes dam removal challenging here, as opposed to what we've dealt with in some other communities. So the land ownership is a definite issue with the dam removal. Removing the dam, what we're seeing is it might cause a possible downstream floodplain rise, so that would have to be worked out with through FEMA. And then there are 8 storm sewer outfalls that drain into the mill pond. That would also have to be dealt with to get those to drain into the river. So there are some significant challenges to dam removal here. But that's kind of where we let off, where we ended with the dam removal. like I said, MSA's corridor study from 2015 laid out a lot of possibilities for that space. But they acknowledged that it'd be very difficult to pull off. It'd be difficult to do anything really but just remove that dam and have very low impact natural development in the lake bed. So these are the cost estimates for each of these options. Like I said, the crest gate option is the most expensive. That was about 2.5 million. The slide gates and the split leaf gates are similarly priced, but you'll see the split leaf gates, those are those 2-panel gates. It's about 100,000 more, but they're both around the 1.8, 1.9, 2 million range. Basic dam removal and stream stabilization, we think, would be in about the 1.2, 1.3 million range. So again, it's the cheapest option. That doesn't include costs for land acquisition, which that's out of my wheelhouse, but I can't even imagine what that could be. And then that doesn't include any sort of recreational enhancements either. That's a very basic, get the dam out of there, make sure the stream is stabilized, and let it be. I think when MSA went through and they assigned a cost estimate to their dam removal with all of their different recreational options, it was closer, I think it was closer to 1.5 million, and that was 8 years ago. But that they also said they didn't include the cost of land acquisition. So. All right, so that was cost. Floodplain impacts. Modifying the dam has a significant, it seems, benefit to the floodplain situation. So the city is FEMA Zone AE, so it's a regulated floodway. And if the dam were modified with any of those three options, the 100-year headwater, so the water levels upstream of the dam would go down over 2 feet. And then downstream of the dam, they actually also go down a little bit too. And that new gate that'll be able to let more water through the dam. So it's not intuitive why downstream you'd also see a rise. You'd think if you're letting more water through, you'd lower the flood level upstream of the dam, but downstream it would have to go up. But the thing is, with the bigger gate, it can let water more readily through earlier in the vent and not build up such a big head behind it. So you see a pretty a net flood benefit both upstream and downstream of the dam by getting that spillway into compliance. So since these are FEMA Zone AE, you would have to go through the FEMA letter of map revision process after the project is complete with the dam modification alternatives. However, based on my understanding, since you're lowering the flood elevation, you don't have to go through the conditional letter of map revision process for the CLOMR. So the CLOMRs are needed to get authorized to actually do the construction project. If you're doing something that is going to modify the floodplain elevation, the LOMR is what you have to do after. For the dam modification alternatives, it seems like you'd only need to do the LOMR at the tail end because you needed a new floodplain map because that's changing. With the dam removal, you're lowering the flood elevation upstream of the dam because you're getting rid of the dam, you're just letting water through. But there, you actually do see a small increase in the floodplain downstream. So for dam removal, a CLOMR and a LOMR might both be needed. And none of those are insurmountable things. People deal with them all the time when they're working in a floodplain, but they do add some cost on to the process. But I guess the key takeaway is, from everything we can see so far, the dam modification alternatives will just require a LOMR at the end of the project. Dam removal would also need a LOMR, but may also need the CLOMR to get authorized to do the project too. Either way, there's FEMA stuff to deal with. Just a quick thing about funding opportunities. So the city has received a commitment of $1 million from the Wisconsin DNR. And that can be used for either dam improvement or dam removal. So that's good. There's also the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant. That can be used, that would really only be applicable here for dam removal, but it could defray some of the costs of land acquisition for the lake bed restoration. And then there's this Army Corps of Engineers Section 206 program. This is for dam removal projects only. It's quite the ordeal, but some communities go through with this. Basically, you get the Army Corps of Engineers involved, and if they agree to take it on, they control the whole project. And there's a cost share involved. They start with a feasibility study. The federal government will pay up to $100,000 for that, and then after that, it's a 50-50 cost share. And then for design and construction costs, it's a 65% federal to 35% local split. I think usually to get these programs to pay off, you've got to have a really big project on your hands. The city would still be responsible for land acquisition costs and the costs of obtaining easements. It's an option. I don't know how feasible it would be here, but I wanted to put it out here just so that it's available for your information. But their $100,000 feasibility study, we did ours for less than 30, so I don't know what they're doing. But these these are the funding mechanisms I see that would move the needle. There are other smaller ones that, like with dam removal, there might be some habitat-related funding opportunities. But everything that I can see so far, these are kind of the biggest opportunities available. All right, next steps. So there is $1 million in funding committed from the DNR. That's yours. But there still is a process you need to go through if you want to use that funding. For one, you need to decide on an alternative, and that doesn't have to be set in stone. You're not committing to any particular project, but you have to commit to something that has a cost estimate associated with it. And then you get this money by applying for the WDNR's municipal dam grant. So for this cycle, applications are due on March 1st of 2024. So prior to March 1st, 2024, the city will just have to have an idea for what they want to do here that they can apply for the grant with. And like I said, you can change your mind. It doesn't have to be something set in stone. You don't even necessarily have to know if you're going to improve or remove the dam. You just have to apply with something. And it's important to get that application in to stay on track with getting your $1 million. So this is the timeline that's laid out. You apply for that grant. You should get it. The money has been committed to the city. They make those announcements in June usually, and then by December 1st of 2024, so a little more than a year away, you need to have plans and specifications for your selected project submitted to the DNR. And then, based on the DNR's current deadline, construction has to be done in July of 2025. Now, I put on here, the DNR is always receptive, in my experience, to reasonable deadline extensions and things, as long as they know the dam owner is committed and they're making progress. So even that 12/1 deadline and that July 2025 deadline, those, I think if the DNR saw the city making progress and you needed an extension of half a year or something, I really don't think, in my experience, that would be a challenge. But the one that I think you really are stuck with to do something by is that March 1st, 2024 deadline. So you can apply for that grant, make sure that you don't do anything to endanger that $1 million of funding you have coming. So I wanted to close with kind of a really similar situation that we just went through last year down in Burlington for their Echo Lake Dam that's right in the middle of their downtown. And they also, like you here in Plymouth, had a directive from the DNR to increase their spillway capacity. And the city wanted to know what the community wanted to do about that. Improve the dam or remove it. So they did some early informal polls asking their residents to save or remove the dam. And I want to make it clear, I'm not putting this process out here as a recommendation. Just wanted to give you an idea for what another community did under similar circumstances. So they did some polling and they found that based on the people that responded to their poll, about 2 to 1 people were in favor of getting the dam into compliance and keeping Echo Lake. So the city hired us to do a feasibility study just like this one, more or less, to look at different dam improvement and removal options and present those. We did that back in November of 2021. They weren't really satisfied yet enough with that. There were strong voices on both the keep the dam and remove the dam side that wanted more information. So then they commissioned heirs to do a master planning study of the adjacent park. So there's a park to the southeast of the lake, immediately adjacent to it. And the idea was do a master plan of the park and the dam improvement option, and then do another master plan for the park and the dam removal option together. And then balance out the costs so that the cost of each project is the same. And then what they did, they wanted to cost neutralize it basically. And I can see reasons for that, and in other ways it doesn't make sense because they're not cost neutral. Keeping the dam and removing the dam, they're not necessarily cost neutral options. But you have one plan where you're keeping the dam in place and improving the park, and then another option where that dam is being removed and you're improving the lake bed. Those are two separate options with similar costs. They put that out to an advisory referendum last November, and they wanted to see, well, given these two really nice flashy options that cost the same, what does the community want to do? So the referendum was last November, and again, nothing changed from their original polling. 2 to 1, even with the flashy options, wanted to keep the dam in place. So right now, the city of Burlington is currently moving forward with the dam improvement option. So that's what Burlington went through. These are just those two options that I was telling you about. The one on the left is keep the dam in place, and then there are park improvements in there which don't matter to what we're talking about here. And the one on the right is remove the dam and basically make that whole lake bed added on park space and improve that along with it. And these two options were cost neutralized and put out to referendum. Their dam removal option was simpler here because they didn't have that same land ownership challenge that you have. The city was confident that that land would be theirs following dam removal, so there would be freedom to go and develop that as they saw fit. But that's just what Burlington went through. It certainly is not always, that is the most extreme case that we have dealt with. All right, that's it for me. That wasn't really brief, I apologize for that, but thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. We are up against the clock here, and we do want to avail the council for a couple brief questions, not long questions. and we'll push back our council meeting accordingly. I think it would be appropriate to get maybe some responses from you. So with that, Councilmember Hildebrand, you want to ask one? Go ahead.
Yes, the dam removal, is that included in options 1 through 3? Or is that an extra cost on top of those options?
You mean like demolition of the existing dam? Yeah, that's, for the dam improvement options, demoing the existing dam to do the work is included in that cost estimate.
All 3?
Yep.
Okay. And I just want to make a quick statement and saying I would still like it to go to a referendum.
Any other questions? John?
Were there any safety challenges of any option that you're aware of? Not really, pretty similar?
No, yeah, with the slide gates and the split leaf gates, there'd be an operator bridge going over them, but that could be locked off. And then with the crest gate, there's not even a need to have a bridge going over that, because that can be operated from the side.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Is it possible to put trash racks in front of the option 2? So you would catch any large, like a tree or big ice chunks, so they wouldn't lodge underneath?
Not usually, because the issue with putting trash racks in front of gates like that you need to pass flood flow is that if during a flood, stuff collects up against that and starts blocking flow. Usually you see trash racks on like smaller lake drain gates that aren't needed to pass flood flows.
Anybody else?
I just have one question.
David?
In your experience, the maintenance of these, of the new dams, is that onerous to the owner, the city? I mean, is that a large amount, or is that just a relatively small amount?
No, since this dam would be like almost a complete replacement. I mean, it's new concrete, new gates. There's yearly maintenance like I went through with lubricating, then stuff more on the 10 to 20 year cycle. But on a yearly basis, very minimal. The more significant things would just have to be included in your planning and budgeting for down the road.
Okay. Alder Diane?
How long would it take from start to finish?
It's a good question. Probably for a project like this, I would think you'd probably not start any earlier than June 1st. And depending on the weather, if all goes well, it would take probably all summer. I think about Sheboygan Marsh, where the significant work started at the end of May. Now all their concrete work is done, and by the end of November, all the gates should be in and operational too. That's a bigger project. And they had good weather this past summer for working in the water. But I would plan on it being kind of a summer-long project.
Real quick one.
Quick one?
Would the flow, normal flow, go over the fixed crest on all 3 options?
No, under normal conditions, the flow will come, that fixed crest is slightly higher than the normal lake elevation. So you're only gonna get flow over that during certain times of the year. The gates are what are gonna pass your normal flow.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And as when we started the presentation, if there are questions, please get them to Kathy. I'll put a little bit on your shoulders, and Tim, you can coordinate things. And we'll be having a follow-up, as Tim said when we started out, very informative, and it's nice to know that March 1st is our first drop dead timeline. So thank you very much. Before then, we have budgets to work on, and have a safe drive home. I just came back from Green Bay myself. It's pretty bad.
It's better now. Yeah.
Should be, yeah.
Well, thanks everyone. Nice seeing you all.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
With that, the Committee of the Whole dam study is finished. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn, and it's 7:05. We'll reconvene at 7:15.
Well, for adjourn.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. We stand adjourned till 7:15. Thank you. That was interesting.